Hey there, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the movement for movement, bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, now with enhanced Dolby sound, because we got a new microphone around the house, and it is a pleasurable listening experience. Let's see if I can keep that up here. Anyway, before I get going with this edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, please definitely subscribe, and share this amongst your friends and colleagues who are interested or already bringing fitness and adapted physical education programs to the autism and neurodivergent populations that they serve. And in this edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, we are going to be talking about the difference and the purpose and the practical usage of two different types of exercises. Actually, the two exercises that we use 99 point whatever cliche percent of the time in our autism fitness programming, those being power exercises and strength exercises. So a little background information on this if you're not already familiar with the Autism Fitness Certification or our curriculum. The two different types of exercises that we focus on the most are power-based exercises and strength-based exercises because, for very good reason, these are the exercises, these are the movement patterns, these are the physiological skills that are going to have the greatest generalization or carryover to activities of daily living. And because the majority of our neurodivergent life skill athletes are not training for a particular sport, the most important thing that we can do in the fitness or adapted PE session, yes, even adapted PE, it's not going to be sports-based, surprise, but it's going to be life skill-based. Can we develop strength, stability, motor planning, and stamina that are going to transcend the gym or the gymnasium or the clinic or the home fitness setting or environment and show up in the real world so that our athletes are safer, more stable, more engaged, more able to initiate and independently complete those exercises or those tasks that are part of everyday life. So are they going to be safer going up and down stairs? Are they going to have limited or no lower back pain when they are standing and sitting, especially as they age? These are all the things that strength training can enhance, and that is why it is the predominant focus of our programming. Now, in the fitness world, and in exercise science, there are a lot of other physical qualities. We can talk about balance, we can talk about flexibility, we can talk about mobility. But the nice thing, and one of the fascinating things about strength or resistance-based training, is that it can enhance all of these other abilities and again, will generalize or show up in a lot of other situations, whereas a lot of other more specified skills are not. So when we talk about something like balance training, like standing on a single leg, it may be an indication of stability, but it's just relegated to that particular situation. And that's why agility training or balance training or sports-based program have a very narrow focus. It doesn't make them wrong, it just makes their applicability to life skills very limited, and this is both demonstrated in the research and it shows up in the real world as well. So preparatory work towards soccer or hockey or football or baseball is not going to transcend that particular situation because it is so specifically focused to that one particular activity. And if more people understood and applied this, we would have a better world in terms of training both in the fitness and in the PE world. So exposure or practice to sports activities is not going to have a high rate or any rate of generalization to other things. It's just not. I'd love to debate that one day. Anyway, moving on, when we talk about power and strength exercises as the foundations of our programming, I think I covered a little bit of the why. So what is the purpose of each type of exercise? Well, with power, the athlete is glasses back on, With power, the athlete is generating force while maintaining stability. So they're creating or they're initiating a fast movement pattern. We use our medicine ball throws a lot, our push throw, our overhead throw, our scoop throw, and then our sandbell slams in order to enable the athlete to generate force while stabilizing as well. Where does this have generalization? Well, if you think about chucking a heavy trash bag into a garbage can or loading laundry into a top loading bin, top loading always superior to front loading, always. Anyway, if you're throwing a heavy bag of laundry into that bin, if you're pushing open a heavy door, these are by nature and by demand more explosive, fast-paced movements. So it would make sense to include a lot of these in our program. However, underlying that power must always be strength, because if you do not have the stability and the movement pattern under control, then it's going to be highly difficult to move fast. So you want to be able to control that squat or control that press and then be able to perform a faster, more explosive version of it. Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of jerky motion, and we're also going to have what's typically called an energy leak or a power leak, where the body does not have sufficient underlying strength and stability to control that movement. So there is extraneous or additional movement occurring. So we see this oftentimes when individuals, this both neurotypical and otherwise, are running, especially downhill, but they don't have the stability to control it. So it looks a little bit all over the place. Why? Because we're losing stability, and even though it's fast, it may not be controlled. So it's very important that our athletes have the underlying control, i.e. strength, before performing those power-based movements. So when we have an athlete who's having a great deal of difficulty stabilizing when they are doing a push throw, or whether when they are doing a scoop throw, for example, which is done predominantly with the hips, the goal is not to get them to do it faster and faster. The goal is to have them be able to control the lower body or the upper body, depending on what the main musculature necessary to perform that exercise happens to be. So let's take the scoop throw, for example. If I have an athlete who's learning to do the scoop throw, which is kind of a hinge movement, almost akin to like a kettlebell swing, or you can think of it as a jump without actually leaving the ground, but using a lot of hip action to propel the ball forward. If they do not have the requisite underlying hip strength or leg strength in order to drive that ball forward, then we're just not going to see it happen no matter how fast they move, because the underlying strength, again, is not there. But if we begin to help strengthen that athlete by programming squats and heavy carries, and even some hinge patterns, if the athlete can control the movement, then we're going to have stronger legs, stronger hips, so that ball, when they do the scoop throw, is going to move a lot better. The strength movements are going to provide what we can think of as a solid foundation upon which to perform those power-based movements. But it doesn't work the opposite way around. Like, doing power-based movements is not really going to build strength. This is the reason why jumping jacks or burpees are really not a sound exercise selection for an individual who can't already do a bodyweight squat and a push-up. So if you think about this as far as prerequisites, a burpee, for example, is supposed to be a combination of a push-up and then a jump. But if we think about this from a needs-based analysis or assessment, if you have an individual who cannot yet do, forget 10 push-ups, a push-up off the floor with control, so controlling that eccentric component of the movement, controlling the push-up, pausing, coming back down, which quite frankly, a lot of neurotypical people can't do, even though they think they can. They just kind of just up and down, up and down, up and down, like those lizards that do it on the pavement, except it's not really generating any strength because there's no control. Anyway, I digress. If you don't have the push-up, and then you're adding a jump, but you're not able to squat, what's going to happen is a lot of compensation, where we are bypassing all of the benefit in order to just do the movement. It's kind of like eating a snack that's still in the wrapper. Like, you're chewing on it, but you're not really getting much out of it. So we'd rather teach or develop the strength first for the athlete so that they have the prerequisite skill, and then add the power as well. This, by the way, is why we largely focus on upper body power exercises in our autism fitness programming, because if we have an athlete who does not yet have the physical strength in their lower body to squat, why on earth would we start programming jumps? It's just an expression of power with the underlying strength that the athlete does not yet have. And if they don't have it, simply having them jump is not going to develop it. What is going to develop it is programming and prioritizing squatting and other low body exercises, but that's really going to be our main one for lower body strength, because that is going to develop, again, the underlying strength necessary to eventually jump if we want to add that into our program. Most of the time there are really very few reasons to do so. So we really have to, when we're looking at or objectively considering best practices in programming, both for the neurotypical, but really for the neurodivergent population, because that's where we're focusing our attention right now, we have to ask, what is the purpose of this exercise? And if we just start throwing terminology at it without understanding the underlying nature and basis and purpose of those exercises, it can get very confused very quickly and ultimately be detrimental for the athlete in the program, because one, there's a safety issue, and two, just as important from a training perspective, we're not going to see a training effect or an increase or improvement in performance because we don't have a sound practices and protocols in terms of the exercises that we are including and the exercises, to that point, that we are excluding as well. So why utilize or implement jumps when the athlete does not yet have a foundation of safe and healthy and independent squatting? It just doesn't make sense. It's backwards in terms of applying the exercise science to it, or fundamentally sound programming. So why have someone jump when they can't control the eccentric movement down? So just adding exercises for the sake of, oh, this is a great exercise, doesn't really make a lot of sense. We need to back it up. So when we are programming, in sum, or to summarize it, we want to focus mainly, our foundation is going to be those strength exercises in those main movement patterns. So pushing, pulling, squatting, hinging, and carrying, right? Those are going to be our main ones. And we don't need many exercises for those, but we want to develop a strength basis, a strength foundation for that athlete, and that is where the power exercises are going to develop. And we're going to see an athlete who, in their first couple of sessions, was having a really difficult time doing that medicine ball push throw with a 2-pound Dynamax ball. And now, 5 or 6 or 7 or 18 sessions in, they are just knocking the coach back with that medicine ball in the good way, probably enjoying it a lot because they have more power. Well, where is that power coming from? That power is coming from the athlete's ability to stabilize from the ground up, so from their feet to their knees, to their hips, to their torso or core or abs or whatever or trunk, whatever we're calling it this week. But they're able to stabilize in that trunk. And now that energy is all focused in that push throw. Why? Because the athlete is overall stronger, more stable, because they've been doing overhead presses and modified push-ups and a variety of different pushing exercises that are now going to strengthen the shoulders and the chest and the upper back. So we want to have intelligent and appropriate training modalities for each athlete, and it's not always and seldom the case that it's appropriate to start adding a lot of agility and a lot of jumping and a lot of moving. It looks like a lot of movement is happening, but is it quality movement, and is it really serving the athlete in the way that they need to be provided with programming right now? So basis should always be strength work, resistance training, and I will be as redundant as that as I need to be, because it's such a missing component of many programs, and yet it should be the basis of most programs, particularly for this population, because we do see a lot of strength and motor deficits, and the way around that is not moving a lot more in many different ways. It's concentrating the effort into getting the athletes stronger in those major motor patterns, so that they can then generalize those capabilities to activities of daily living, and even, yes, sports and recreational activities as well. Because think about it, if you have stronger legs, are you going to be able to pedal a bicycle better? Yeah, absolutely. But if you're pedaling a bicycle as the main focus of a training program, is that going to provide enough strength that it generalizes to other areas? Not so much. So we want to go strength first, and then everything else follows. I hope that has cleared up some programming questions. If you have more, I'd love to answer them. Comments in the comments section below. I'd love to read them, love to answer them, love to help out. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to cover in a future edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, leave that in the comments below also. And of course, if you're ready to join the Movement for Movement and become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro, hit the link, or I'll just say it, it's autismfitness.com. You can learn all about the pro certification and our site certification for schools, clinics, and organizations that want to bring autism fitness programming into the forefront of their offerings. I am Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the Movement for Movement. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.